Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and I'm going to do a little bit of my relaxing old world crafting here and talk to you guys a little bit about bulking and natural or drug-free lifters, because I did a video earlier about training splits for naturals, and people said, hey, will you do some more stuff on naturals only, very specific to them? And I'm like, sure, why not? If that's what people want to hear, that's what they're going to get. I got to keep you guys happy. That's my job. So let's see if we can make this informative and entertaining. All right, so when the question comes up of should naturals bulk and how hard should they bulk, this is a difficult question to answer because it depends upon one specific variable. The most important variable becomes how focused are they on strength and athletic performance, particularly again strength-based, versus how focused are they on body composition, because the answer is going to be quite a bit different depending on that. Now for guys who care just about strength, like strength is what they're trying to do, they're trying to build that solid strength base, you're going to want to bulk, because if you're not caring a little bit, if you're not that upset or worried about gaining a little bit of extra body fat and carrying it around, if you don't mind being 18 or 20% body fat, bulking a little bit and running a 10% surplus on your calories for a year straight isn't really a big deal. It's not going to hurt you. It's only going to help you. A little bit of extra fat is going to give you extra recovery. It's going to give you a little extra leverages. It's going to make gaining muscle and therefore strength easier. Now, it does need to be kept in check if you compete in something that requires a conditioning component, of course, like football, rugby, even wrestling, a lot of different sports. But if you're trying to be a strength-based athlete, completely clean, you can afford to get a little bit fatter. You're going to need to, in fact, to really build your foundation. You might need to trim the fat down later or do some recomposition, but you're going to need to gain a significant amount of fat to really build your base in a timely manner, particularly things like high school football. It's going to be advantageous for you to do so. So yeah, getting up to even 20% body fat is probably not a problem for you. Don't do it overnight. Take your time. Get there over the course of 6 months or a year. Now, if you're more concerned with body composition, you're trying to maximize muscle gains while minimizing fat loss, you're going to have to think your bulking through a little more carefully. Your first year, you probably don't need to gain any body fat, meaning or such a small amount that your body fat percentage doesn't go up. You could sit there and focus on only gaining 1.5 pounds, 2 pounds per month of body weight for at least your first 6 months on a good novice program like my novice 5x5, my linear hypertrophy program. Either one of those will maximize your size gains. You'll need to overeat just enough to do that. Your body fat percentage probably isn't going to increase. So if you started at 14 or 15% body fat, you gain that slow, follow those programs all the way through, that's where you're going to be once you finish the program out after 6 months, 9 months, a year, whatever it takes. And then you could trim a little body fat off if you want to. But the thing that you need to keep in mind, once you get out of that novice phase, you need to lose this idea that as a drug-free lifter, you're going to make significant amounts of lean gains, that you're ever going to put on 5 pounds of muscle in any period of time, even a year or 9 months or something, without gaining some body fat. The purely lean gains for the intermediate and up drug-free lifter is difficult to say the least, and for some people might actually be impossible. And again, unless they're willing to gain insanely slow, meaning it might take them 2 years to gain what they could have gained in 9 or 10 months. That's what I mean by insanely slow. So you've got to factor that in, and that's kind of an individual thing. But I would say if you're trying to maximize body composition, you're always going to have to gain slowly as a drug-free lifter. There's just no way around that. The serious big bulks you see are for guys who are caring only about strength. Again, for maybe football or something, yeah, they're going to bulk a little more heavy, even without drugs. For high school football, trying to become a heavier weight boxer or something, because they'll just get their conditioning from their conditioning work. They can gain a little body fat to put that size on, that strength. But you guys who are caring a little more about your body composition and You can't afford to do it that way, because what ends up happening, you have to trim the body fat off later. You invariably lose a little bit of muscle. So if you go on, say, a 15% calorie surplus or a 20% calorie surplus, what I would call a dirty bulk, you don't have the advantage guys on drugs do. Guys on certain drugs, actually most drugs will reduce the fat you gain. Some drugs that guys are using out there will limit their fat gains to almost nothing, even on a dirty bulk. And when they go to diet, some of those drugs will speed up the fat loss a little bit. Some of them will help preserve muscle better. So if they could actually, technically, if they can get their appetite in check, that's the hardest part with these guys on drugs. They oftentimes use other drugs to suppress appetite because they're not worried about losing muscle mass. They can take enough drugs to hold on to all their muscle and just trim body fat off aggressively. Not a big deal. Guys who are doing it clean, that's a lot harder. You're going to lose a little bit of muscle every time you cut. Almost no way around it. If you're cutting body fat at any significant rate, you know, even a pound a week, you're going to lose muscle. For you guys who are starting relatively lean or at a healthy body fat percentage. So you've got to weigh out how much body fat can you really afford to gain. And it's unfortunate, but it's not a fair game. It isn't a fair game for the guys who choose to do it clean. That's why a lot of people get upset about the drug use, because it just gives an advantage on several levels. But a lot of people, for health reasons, for legal reasons, for their own moral reasons, choose not to do that. And so if you choose not to do that, you don't want to use the methods of the guys who do, because it's not doing you any favors oftentimes. So I'm going to say for most guys, try to do recompositioning through phases. If you want to maximize your body composition, you'll definitely be able to do recomp methods as a novice, particularly if you're not real lean. It's going to be real easy. You get out of that early novice phase though, try to recomposition for a while, and if you stagnate for a month at the same body weight, all your lifts stagnate, you can't get stronger, what you can oftentimes do is do a little clean bulk to push yourself past that plateau. You can use that extra food and the little bit of body fat that you're going to gain with it and the extra body weight to go ahead and push yourself past a sticking point in your gains and in your training. And so when you do it that way, you know you're going to gain muscle with it, because you're using the extra food, the extra recovery, the extra leverages from the intermuscular water, a little bit of extra fat to facilitate better training. And if you get stronger and you're eating enough to gain a little bit of weight, you know you're going to gain muscle. Guaranteed you're going to gain muscle. So that is a great way to push past plateaus. If you've tried to recomposition for a little while, completely clean, and you just stagnate. Well, do a little clean bulk. And what do I mean by a clean bulk? I'm talking maybe a 10% calorie surplus. So if you're maintaining on around 3,000 calories per day, that's what you've been recomping at, go up to 3,300. What you're invariably going to find when you do it this way, though, is that you're going to stagnate again. It might take you 6 weeks. It might take you 8 weeks, but eventually when you do that, that 3,300 is going to become your maintenance. You'll probably recomposition there a little bit at that maintenance, and then you're going to stagnate again. And you can kind of repeat the process, and it's a good way for the drug-free lifter, once they accept the fact that they're going to gain slower, that they are going to have to wash their body fat more, they're not going to have the leeway that other guys do, they can go ahead and work around that. And that's a fantastic method to do it, because again, you can just rotate without really fully planning the rotations. And what I mean is, every time you increase your calories just slightly, it will over time turn into a recomposition. You'll gain a little bit of muscle, you'll gain a little bit of fat, but eventually that will become your maintenance calories. And it might become your maintenance calories for a month, for 5 weeks, for 6 weeks. And when you're at that point, you will probably recomposition just slightly. You'll lose a little bit of the fat. You'll gain a little bit of muscle, and then you'll stagnate. Because we all stagnate. You have to accept, even guys on drugs stagnate. Guys definitely not on drugs. You're going to have periods where you stagnate. Just accept that. And when you accept it, you come up with methods to work around it, because you accept it as your reality, and then you can deal with it. And what you can then do once you stagnate again, you're at the same body weight, and again, bump the calories up 10%. You'll go back through the same process. You'll gain a little muscle, you'll gain a little fat, and eventually it will become your new maintenance. And this is a cycle that you could repeat, and it's going to take longer and longer each time before it will become your new maintenance and before you'll stagnate and stuff. But it is something that you could maintain in the long term. And this is a totally viable method for the guys who are really, really concerned with body composition. I don't mean to get ripped. You shouldn't get ripped to the bone as a drug-free lifter. That is terrible for you. If you guys compete in bodybuilding, that's your own call, but I don't advocate that you do that. So this isn't advice for guys who want to compete in bodybuilding. It's just guys who really just are trying to get the best that they can out of their year-round body composition, who want to do it clean, who are doing it just for fitness, but they still kind of want to look good. It's like really important to them. And it might be really important because you might even compete in something that has a weight class. Or you need to has a conditioning component, and maybe you don't want to carry much body fat. So maximizing your body composition for a sport that needs both conditioning and strength, or conditioning and power, it makes a lot of sense. So definitely the way to go, and that method will work well for you. But just understand that there's going to be a difference between training for absolute strength versus body composition component, because the guys who are just going for absolute strength, they can go ahead and go up to 18 or 20% body fat. High school football player, it's not really a problem as long as their conditioning can stay on point. They're going to be okay in a lot of those sports, so they can get away with something a little different than the guys who are concerned with the aesthetics or a weight class, or really balancing a high degree of conditioning with explosiveness, like a boxer, someone who plays a sport like that, or MMA or something. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.